Another season is upon us. Freshmen arrive wide-eyed with dreams of future glory, while seniors prepare for their last chance at immortality. There are only a handful of these opportunities in a man's life, a handful of chances to distinguish yourself from the rest. It's on these fields where history is made, where legends begin and heroes triumph. Traditions tell the story of what you represent, of those that forge the legacy you uphold. When you come charging out of the tunnel, 100,000 people will be watching your every move. How you respond to that pressure is what defines you. These are the moments that reveal your toughness, your determination, and your pride. The Roughnecks on the Sooner Schooner. Ralphie charging out of the gate. And Chief Osceola planting his spear. The time has come. Your time is now.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is your host, Jake of College Football Redzone, coming to you live here this afternoon as we embark on a brand new week of the college football season, week number 10. So we are closing in on the final month of the season already. With that being said, we find ourselves separating the contenders from the pretenders, not only for the conference level, but also for the national level as well, plus teams that are shooting for other goals and objectives, such as reaching that coveted bowl eligibility to get those extra reps in postseason play. So, with that being said, what we are going to do in this video, we are going to take a deep dive into every single game that we have going on here over the course of week number 10. So, all I'm going to do real fast, I'm going to change my webcam. Going to go ahead and get that taken care of. So, yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a hard look at what we have in terms of every single game that's going to be played in week number 10. But obviously, for some of these games, we are going to take a little bit of a deeper dive than others. Other games, we probably won't have a deep dive at all because we are going to preview them later this week, either in a Wednesday stream or like in a video later this week, leading up to Saturdays in the fall. So, with that being said, it starts things out. Let's not waste any more time. We start things out with two games happening on Tuesday, both happening at 8 p.m. Eastern. First game that we have is Kennesaw State and UTEP. UTEP has been reeling, definitely been a disappointing year under year 2 under Scott Walden. Brand new coaching staff in Kennesaw State, and they have taken over. Looking like one of the contenders of Conference USA, it's just going to be a matter of, can Kennesaw State remain focused because they have been in an unfamiliar spot? I do think Kennesaw State does get the win at home to begin our week number 10. That being said, I think the line right now is at 9.5, but I would not be surprised if that is actually a little bit closer of a game than expected. Meanwhile, we have James Madison taking on Texas State, another Tuesday night game that we have. James Madison being one of the premier G5 contenders. Might need some help from the American, but James Madison currently on track to win the Sun Belt, while Texas State, we know DJ Kinn has done a good job in the transfer portal in the past, but this transfer portal class has just not really been meshing for the Bobcats. So with that being said, even though James Madison's going on the road, I'm rolling with the Dukes against Texas State. Then we find ourselves on Wednesday. Both of these games do have some Conference USA weekday CUSA action happening in front of our eyes on Wednesday night. Jacksonville State taking on Mid-Tennessee on the road. Jacksonville State, while they have some struggles in terms of passing the football, Mid-Tennessee, even though this game is happening at home at the same time, though, this is a team that has not really shown much of a pulse in year number 2 under Derek Mason. Jacksonville State, on the other hand, under Charles Kelly, they are a CUSA contender. I'm rolling with the Gawks on Wednesday night. That being said, the other Wednesday game that we have is Florida International taking on Missouri State. The Bears have been playing some solid football. Your number one have not gotten as much attention as Delaware. We'll touch up on Delaware in a little bit. But with that being said, with Missouri State taking on FIU, again, another one of those teams that I'm not really that high on. I think Missouri State, now that Jacob Clark is back, I think they're going to be set to make a nice little run here in the month of November, giving Missouri State at home. Now, for your Thursday slate, we got Marshall and Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina taking on Marshall. Marshall, one of the more interesting and intriguing stories here in week number 10, right? Marshall, and this is myself included. I'm not going to be one to, is afraid to admit when they're wrong. But Marshall is a lot better of a team than what we expected in the preseason. Coastal Carolina, they haven't been horrific, but also haven't had anything exciting to write home about either. So I'm looking at this Marshall Thundering Herd team. They have a lot more momentum working in their direction right now. I'm going to roll with the Thundering Herd as, they continue to cement themselves as a possible Sun Belt title contender, fighting for one of those conference spots. Now we got Tulane taking on UTSA. Tulane, got themselves thick in the hunt in terms of going to the American Conference Championship. Meanwhile, UTSA, it's been a little bit of a disappointing year for UTSA. Still a lot of talent on that roster, but UTSA has not put it together. I think Tulane is a little bit more of a well-coached team. I think they can smother UTSA defensively, even though they are on the road. Definitely keep an eye on UTSA. That could be a closer game than what people realized. And now we jump into the Friday games. We got 3 Friday games happening here for us in week number 10. Starting with the Memphis Tigers, coming off of a huge win, an emotional win against USF. Well, Rice, Rice also coming off a really big win themselves. They beat UConn in an upset. Both these teams coming off an emotional win. Listen, I think Memphis had their letdown spot. While this could be a letdown spot themselves, I think they learned from their mistakes from the UAB game. I think they don't mess with Food, and they'll get the win against Food, as Memphis will get to 8-1 on the year, keep themselves in the hunt for not only the American title, but that possible G5 spot. D-Dub, appreciate you coming through, by the way. That might be something I might do in the future in terms of ranking teams 1 through 136. So I'll definitely keep that in mind in terms of maybe like some off-season content in terms of like final rankings. Anywho, we'll get back to the other Friday game. North Carolina and Syracuse. I think this one is really fascinating between North Carolina and Syracuse. North Carolina, they've been close in their last couple of games. They nearly beat Cal, and then, they showed some cojones going for 2 in double overtime against, or not double overtime, but single overtime against Virginia. Didn't work out. Syracuse, on the other hand, they have been down horrendous since Steve Ungeli went down. The injuries have really hurt this team. I do think that Fran Brown is a little bit better of a college coach than Bill Belichick goes, so I'm going with Syracuse. Not a pick that I'm super excited about. Then closing out Friday, we do have Sam Houston taking on Louisiana Tech. Here's the thing, Sam Houston, they have not won a game all year, and Louisiana Tech, well, they're on a 2-game losing streak. They're back home. They're hosting a win with Sam Houston team. I'm going to roll with Louisiana Tech in this one. No notes required there. Now we really get into the thick of things. We got the Saturday slate coming in our direction. We now go ahead and jump into Army versus Air Force. Army versus Air Force is what we got going on next. This is an important game for both teams, even though it doesn't have any national implications or conference implications. This is for part of that Commanders and Chiefs trophy series. Air Force already has the loss to Navy, so we'll at least have a share, or at least the promise of a share of that trophy. They got to beat Army. Army, if they beat Air Force, will set themselves up with an ultimate matchup against Navy for that Commanders and Chiefs trophy at the end of the regular season. I don't think Air Force has a lot of juice, to be honest with you. Neither of these teams excite me, to be honest. I do think Army is a little bit better coach under Jeff Monken. Still a pesky team in the American, while Air Force hasn't really shown much of a pulse. Give me Army. Then we have Buffalo taking on the Bowling Green Falcons. Bowling Green coming off of that loss against Kent State, which, by the way, shout out to your boy. Your boy did call the Kent State upset. So, got to put some respect on my name. Buffalo, also another team that, has really floundered the last couple of weeks. Buffalo nearly losing to UMass. And to be honest with you, probably should have lost that UMass game as well. So, begrudgingly, I think I'm going to roll with Bowling Green. Neither of these teams really carrying any sort of momentum going into this Saturday's matchup. Meanwhile, UCF is going to be taking on the Baylor Bears in a Big 12 conference matchup. So here's a really interesting thing. Baylor, we knew that the offense we thought was going to be good. The defense was really going to determine Baylor's ceiling. Baylor's defense has not really improved, which is surprising under a defensive head coach in Dave Averenda. That being said, UCF, they do have a common opponent in the Cincinnati Bearcats. UCF actually put up a better fight. So I know UCF is actually an underdog and on the road. Give me UCF, man. I think UCF has a little bit more to play for. While, I worry that Baylor is just kind of going to mail it in here in the month of November. So I'm going to go with UCF there. Duke is going to play against Clemson. Oh, boy. So I do think on paper Clemson is the more talented roster. But at the same time, though, really have to return, especially with the SMU game. And I don't even think it's because of the quarterback position. I thought Chris Faziano, who came in relief for Cade Klubnik, I thought he was good. This game is happening at home. So I'm going with Clemson. It would not be surprised at all if they do end up pulling it out against Duke. Ohio State taking on Penn State here. That's going to be a new game happening on Fox. So let me break this down, right? So for Ohio State, number one team in the nation, Penn State had those expectations, the top 5 preseason team. They fired their head coach. They have losses to Northwestern and UCLA. I don't see this team going and beating Ohio State on the road. That just ain't happening. Miami is taking on SMU. I think this could be a really interesting upset alert right here, right? We don't have the any given not the any given Saturday tour, but like Josh Payton, it's going to be at this game. So we could be seeing some chaos here. SMU, a good team, even though they did get upset by Wake last week. Miami had that slow start against Stanford, but I think they turned it on in the second half, able to get that convincing win. So I'm going to roll with Miami. I think Miami has found themselves once again. But of course, definitely a game to watch out for. We could see an upset alert here, but I am going with Miami, at least as of right now. That being said, we got UAB and UConn up deck and up next here, man. As UAB, last time we saw them, really big win against Memphis. And then UConn, they are coming off of an upset loss against Rice. So maybe two teams coming in opposite directions. I think Joe Vagano is still going to have his way with the UAB defense. I think that UAB game that they had where UAB beats Memphis, that's built a little bit like a fluke. Could see the Blazers return back to earth, giving UConn. West Virginia and Houston. Listen, West Virginia is going to take some time to turn this thing around in year one under Rick Rodriguez. Willie Fritz over in Houston, man, one of the more improved teams in the country in Houston, putting together a really nice performance against Arizona State. They probably will be ranked when the newest Redshirt Sports Top 25 comes out, either later today or tomorrow. Give me Houston. They have a lot more energy on their side as of right now. Rutgers taking on Illinois. I'm going to roll with Illinois in this one. That is primarily because Rutgers cannot stop a nosebleed, and Illinois' defense is actually solid, not a liquid or gas. One of the biggest G5 games that we do have this week, we got Navy taking on North Texas. That's going to be a big matchup in store between Navy and North Texas. That could really decide not only who goes to the American Championship, but who gets that automatic G5 spot as well. I'm going with North Texas. I think North Texas is a little bit more of a offensively explosive team. I worry about Navy's ability to win in a shootout against like a North Texas team like this. It's going to be Navy's toughest game of the year, and I think we'll see Navy's first loss. Vanderbilt and Texas. I'm not going to go too deep into this one because I will preview this in depth later this week. My first thought, so, is that this is one of those games where Vanderbilt would like to win this game. Texas needs this win bad, especially after what happened against Mississippi State, where they nearly found a way to lose that game as well. So, that being said, I'm going with Texas in this one because of the urgency. Plus, this game is going to be at home as well, giving the Texas Longhorns. Arizona State now taking on Iowa State. Iowa State, man, coming on a 3-game losing streak. They're taking on Arizona State. Arizona State simply not the same team that we saw at the tail end of the 2024 season, where they made the CFP, nearly beat Texas as well. Iowa State on a 3-game losing streak. And Arizona State's having some injury issues with Sam Levitt. So I think Iowa State finally gets back in the win column for the first time in the last 3 to 4 weeks. And Iowa State does secure bowl eligibility. East Carolina and Temple. Now, this game is happening on ESPN+. What a tragedy, because these two teams are really good teams in the American. American's a really fun conference, as you can tell. I'm going with East Carolina. East Carolina is coming off of a bye, while Temple, on the other hand, Temple coming off of a shaky performance against Tulsa. So I'm going to roll with the Pirates here. Could be a shootout on our hands. Should be a really good one to watch. New Mexico taking on UNLV in the Mountain West. Listen, I like Dan Mullen in this spot, coming in at home. I believe that they were not on, were they on bye? They were on bye last week. They're going to be well rested. Jason Erk has really done a nice job turning New Mexico around, but I do think UNLV gets the job done there. Louisville taking on Virginia Tech. Louisville, they had some shaky performance against Boston College previously. Virginia Tech, on the other hand, we saw them beat Cal this past weekend, but Cal was a little bit of a paper tiger at 5-2. If we're being honest with ourselves, because they had a little bit of that letdown against Boston College, I think Jeff Brom and the boys are going to get refocused in. They're going to get this win against Virginia Tech. That being said, Notre Dame and Boston College. Yeah, Boston College is not showing any pulse. If Notre Dame loses this game, I would truly be shocked. So, I mean, it is what it is there. Maybe first North Texas will be on D5 simulation game of the week. Yeah, man, it's probably the biggest D5 game that we have here in week number 10. Huge implications for the conference and for the overall national picture. Fresno State and Boise State, a game that also could have a bigger picture. Now, I was a little bit more high on Fresno State until a couple weeks ago. After Fresno State started 5-1, they dropped their last couple of games. And most recently, lost 23-0 against San Diego State, who, by the way, had their backup quarterback in for most of the second half. So if they can't find a way to score against San Diego State, Boise State is going to chew them up and spin them out, man. It's going to be a long day for the Bulldogs. Give me Boise State there. Texas Tech and Kansas State. Now, on paper, Texas Tech has obviously looked like the more dominant and the more consistent team that we have seen over the course of this 2025 college football season. Kansas State, man, I'll tell you this. Kansas State has really ramped it up a notch because that Kansas State team, they're coming off of that big win against the Kansas Jayhawks, really got a big win against Little Brother. Texas Tech, they bounced back after the loss to Arizona State. They dominate against Oklahoma State as well. I think Texas Tech is still the team to beat in the Big 12. I'm rolling with them against Kansas State, but hey, man, I think Kansas State's going to put up a fight, man. Should be a really fascinating game to watch. That's going to be happening over on, if I can find it in my notes, it's going to be happening on Fox, and it's a 3:30 kickoff if you guys want to go watch that. Delaware and Liberty. Blue Hens, been a really nice story as well. The Blue Hens, I think if I'm not mentioned, I'm going to scroll through this because, okay, so Liberty is 3-4. Has Delaware secured bowl eligibility? I thought I saw they had to be okay, they're 4-3. I just had to scroll up and down to take a hard look at that. So Delaware, they are going on the road against Liberty. I do think Liberty has figured some things out since going back in the Conference USA play, though. Delaware has kind of struggled in the last couple of weeks. I think Liberty carrying that more momentum. I think we'll see Liberty win this one against Delaware. Pitt taking on Stanford. listen, nobody wants to play Pitt right now. I'm going to tell you this right now, especially ever since they brought in that new quarterback into the starting lineup. He's a true freshman whose name is long and hard to pronounce, taking on Stanford. Yes, it is a cross-country road trip, but I think Pitt is just a superior team, and they're coming in hot. I think, do we see Pitt cover? Maybe not. But at the same time, I really like what Pitt has done, especially over the last couple of weeks. Maybe a team that sneaks to the top 25 sooner than later. You got the world's largest cocktail party as well between Georgia and Florida. Listen, Georgia is an extraordinarily well-coached team, while Florida, on the other hand, we have seen this Florida team mess around, and they fired their coach. They do have the interim. So I just don't know how much juice this Florida Gators team has. So I'm going with the Georgia Bulldogs. Much well coached, and frankly, a better team on paper. Old Dominion and UL Monroe. Listen, I'm going with the Monarchs here yet again, right? I am not a believer in UL Monroe. I think Brian Vincent has done a solid job, but I think he'll eventually turn it around. But the Sun Belt is a tough conference. And UL Monroe, while they've had some good moments in non-conference play, at the same time, they have been pantsed consistently ever since they've gotten into the Sun Belt portion of their season. So I'm going with the Monarchs there. Indiana and Maryland. Listen, it is simply unwise to bet against Kurt Cinetti. Maryland, they had that hot start, and then the month of October started. Maryland has not won a game since we entered the month of October. It's going to be November by the time the season starts. So, Maryland, they're on a free game losing streak. Don't see them really turning it around against Indiana. Could be a splattering. Michigan State and Minnesota. Both of these teams, coming off of somewhat embarrassing performance. Michigan State wasn't as bad, had a competitive game against Michigan, while Minnesota got rocked by Iowa. That Iowa team, man, if they're not ranked in the top 25 for redshirt sport, they absolutely should be. That is a really damn good team. PJ Fleck, I think, after losing to his last 3 games, does get back on track, especially at home. Do like the Minnesota Gophers being able to win in the defensive battle against Michigan State. Louisiana taking on South Alabama. Now, this will be a fascinating matchup between two teams that have really disappointed this year. South Alabama both these teams I really thought could have competed for a Sun Belt title. Louisiana is more due to injuries, and then South Alabama on the other hand, the defense. The defense is just awful. I watched them play against Georgia State and made the Georgia State offense look like the greatest show on turf. They won that game, but at the same time, both these teams with alarming issues, man, for sure. So I'm going with South Alabama because it's at home. Don't feel great about that pick, though. One pick that I will feel a little bit better about is New Mexico State and Western Kentucky. Listen, I think Western Kentucky might be the team to beat in the Conference USA right now. I like how they played against Louisiana Tech. They did bounce back nicely against FIU a couple of weeks ago. I was bouncing from that performance. So rolling with Western Kentucky here against New Mexico State. And then got Virginia and Cal, who might be one of the more fraudulent 7-1 teams right now. Listen, Virginia's been a really nice story. I do think eventually Virginia does get exposed, but I don't think this Cal team is going to do it. Cal, I think it's one of the lesser teams in the ACC, to be honest with you. So I'm rolling with Virginia for right now, but I think eventually we might see that drop off from the Virginia Cavaliers. It's just a matter of when. You also want to talk about a fall off for these two programs. These two programs, even though they do have all the resources of a power conference, they have been relegated to ESPN Plus. That's going to be a 4 o'clock kickoff if you're looking for some sicko energy. I'm going with Kansas. Listen, Oklahoma State, not only the worst team in the Power 4, but at the same time, they might be genuinely one of the worst teams in the country. And that includes some G5s in there. That's based on my power ratings as well. I think they're like a bottom 20 team. They have been down horrendous, right? Two teams have not been, I guess, down horrendous, but have had some bad luck. Mississippi State and Arkansas. Both of these teams have been in multiple SEC games. I mean, Mississippi State, we could be talking about them as a 6-2 squad. They had a couple bounces their way. Arkansas, on the other hand, was very close to, pulling some upsets off against Tennessee, and I think they were in it against Texas A&M as well. They just have not finished games, though. That's just been the biggest problem for this Arkansas team. And the same thing for Mississippi State. One of these two teams have to win, and I think it's going to be Arkansas, mainly because the game is at home. But these two teams, I think, are going to be very evenly matched. If they were to happen on a neutral field, I think Mississippi State would be slightly favored. But Arkansas, I'm rolling with them because of the fact that it is at home. Central Michigan and Western Michigan, we got a directional Michigan rivalry as we start to get a little bit closer to that midweek action. That's going to be starting up next week. Very excited for that. I'm rolling with Western Michigan. Listen, that's a very good team in the MAC. One of the bright surprises. Central Michigan, I think, is really starting to turn the corner as well, but I think Western Michigan is on another level at this moment, so I am rolling with the Broncos there. Arizona taking on Colorado. Listen, I'm going to go a little bit on the limb here. I'm going with Colorado in this one. Here's why. We did see that this Colorado team did end up getting crushed by Utah, but I think this is the moment where we really see that Colorado team really wake up. Arizona, on the other hand, they had that really nice start. They were like 4-0 in one point, and then once they started to play programs that have an actual hope, Arizona has struggled mightily, with the exception of the BYU game, which they didn't come out on top either. I actually think Colorado is going to be one of those teams that is going to, in fact, be able to pull the upset off. Getting the Colorado Buffaloes at home, I'm going to put my faith in prime. San Diego State taking on Wyoming. Wyoming, a team in the Mountain West, but San Diego State, they look like a team that's ready to compete for a Mountain West title, and honestly might not be too far off from competing with Boise State, to be honest with you. Now, they did lose their starting quarterback. This game is going to be at home, though, so I really do like San Diego State disregard. Oh, excuse me. I did not get very much sleep last night, so I do apologize. Michigan taking on Purdue. Not going to waste much time here. Purdue, they look better on the offensive side of the ball than they did last year under Barry Odom. Defense still has a lot of holes. It's going to be a multi-year effort before Purdue is looking respectable again in the Big Ten. It's going to take some time, but I think Barry Odom can get it done. Ole Miss taking on South Carolina. We did see South Carolina come out of October without any kind of wins whatsoever. But now moving into November, could they pull one of these big upsets off? They nearly did against Alabama. Here's the thing, though. I think South Carolina is feeling a little bit more demoralized. It's easy to say that, hey, maybe the South Carolina team is starting to get a little bit checked out. Whereas Ole Miss, they still have all their goals in front of them. They're at home as well. Really like the idea of Ole Miss coming out on top against South Carolina. Hugh Freeze, meanwhile, is hosting Kentucky. Auburn finally able to get an SEC win. They've been close in all of these SEC games. They had close games against Georgia, a close game against Texas A&M. That being said, Kentucky, besides the Texas game, which was more Texas not playing up to its standard versus Kentucky actually putting together a good game plan. Listen, Kentucky is not able to competing with the rest of the SEC right now. I think it's time to move on from Mark Stoops and got to look at the future here. Someone that, and maybe it's one of those the university needs to commit more to the football program. I don't know, but Kentucky, it's a lost season for them. To be honest with ourselves. Wake Forest and Florida State. Now Wake Forest has got a big win on the road, not on the road, but at home against SMU. Florida State, we start off with an incredible high, able to beat Alabama at home, but ever since then, it's been very questionable. They've lost 4 consecutive ACC games, so that's why they find themselves at 3-4. They are coming off of a bye, though, so I do think Florida State does finally get back on track and get a win, but at the same time, it's been a tough go for Florida State once again. I also don't trust Jake Dickert enough to win on the road consistently. I'm not there yet with him, right? So, okay. Georgia Tech taking on NC State at home. Listen, NC State cannot stop a nosebleed, even if they try. That's evident in the pit game. My only concern here, besides the fact that this game is on the road, is also this team is very reliant on Haynes King. So if Haynes King does go down with an injury, it could get very hairy very quickly. But at the same time, though, I I love what Brent Key is doing out there in Atlanta. I'd love for him to continue to remain undefeated for right now. Washington State and Oregon State. Now, this is fascinating. So this is actually going to be like a 2-game series, right? Because later this year, Oregon State will actually travel to Pullman to take on Washington State. It's the first time I've ever seen this in my lifetime. I thought it was pretty fascinating. This is the first of those 2 games. First is Washington State on the road against Oregon State. Listen, Washington State coming off a nice win against Toledo, one of the better talent rosters in the MAC, while Oregon State, we know what Oregon State has been. Oregon State has been a disaster. So we are rolling with Washington State because of that. And if they're winning it on the road, I expect them to also win at home too. USC taking on Nebraska. Could be a CFB elimination game for some folks. It's not for me because we have seen 9-3 teams, get serious consideration. That being said, very important for both teams if they want to remain in the top 25. I do like USC a little bit more. I think they're going to be able to control the line of scrimmage. Give me USC. Oklahoma taking on Tennessee. Here's the thing, Oklahoma and Tennessee, I'm not going to dive into this one too much either because we are going to review this more in a deep dive later this week. Now, I am rolling with Tennessee. I think Tennessee is a little bit more of a completed team. Oklahoma, their inability to run the football outside of John Mateer is really holding this team back. And the defense is exploitable, as we've seen from the Ole Miss game last week. Tennessee just as good offensively. Arkansas State taking on the Detroit Trojans. Listen, the Detroit Trojans, man, they are looking like a serious threat to go to the Sun Belt title game. I expect that to continue as, Coach Jones on the road. Don't really trust him in that particular spot. It is what it is there. Cincinnati and Utah, the home of college game day. What do we think, boys? My Cincinnati Bearcats for the Utah Utes. Very proud of my Cincinnati team. The fact that we are firmly in the top 25 now. Really love this team. It's been a great year. I think this Utah team is a different animal. Outside of being blown out by Texas Tech, which, to be honest with you, a lot of teams have been blown out by Texas Tech. Oh, and you're also talking about Cincinnati having to go a cross-country road trip to play against Utah for a night game. Really don't like the spot for my Cincinnati Bearcats. Hoping that my boys can come out on top and win this game, but I am going to roll with Utah in this particular spot, which leaves us with the quintessential Hawaiian test to round out your week number 10 action here. Hawaii taking on San Jose State. Listen, San Jose State has been extremely disappointing this year. You know who has not been disappointing, though? The Hawaii Rainbow Warriors, man. Sneaky good team, man. 6-2 on the year. I'm going with Hawaii. I think Hawaii has more energy right now. Yes, they got to go on the road. I do think Hawaii is a better football team, and I think they're able to go ahead and get the road win. So, guys, this is what is going to be all my picks for week number 10. If there is any that you disagree with, let me know down in the comment section down below. Did a pretty good job last week. We do have we got about 40 out of I believe 40 out of 54 games right last week. So a solid performance, not a week we were gassed. And yeah, as Vita mentioned in the chat as well, in terms of a 10 p.m. kickoff time, I know that's going to be rough on my body to stay up and actually watch that game. But yeah, man, that is going to wrap things up here. Let me know down in the comments, and call your shot in the comment section as well, or in the chat if you're watching live. What big upset do you think is going to happen this weekend? Definitely let me know. Though that being said, I'm your host Jake of College Football Red Zone, signing off. We will have the Redzone Sports Top 25 reveal later this week, and we will also have that CFB Red Zone stream on Saturday for your viewing pleasure. So that being said, this is Jake of College Football Red Zone signing off. Hoping you guys are all out there having a good one. Take care.